Hi, I'm Tony from Azure, and I want to talk to you about persisting variables through Azure pipelines. This has often been a bit challenging because there's no simple way to retain a variable's value through different tasks and phases. So I wanted to create a way that was easy in a programmatic way to store variables at the right time at the right value. The strategy I've had is to use API calls to the pipelines, to the pipeline definition. The thing is, you're quite restricted in what you can do. If you're in the middle of a stage, you can't alter anything within that stage, but you can alter global variables, for example. So what the pipeline does is it alters the global variable, which means that it's available in the next task, in any phase that comes afterwards, and so on. And it seems to me that the best way to demonstrate how this worked was to create a demo project, and this demo project has some of the use cases that you might look at. And the best way to demonstrate it to you was to put the project on Zoink along with the Python scripts that I've created for it, and to create a demo that explained how it works. So in a moment I'll start the demo. We'll just step you through how it works, and you'll be able to see the variables persist through, and it gives you some idea of the challenge you've got, particularly around where you might have multiple people deploying the same pipeline at the same time but in different stages. This strategy will cope with that, but it does require some consistency in your variable names and so on. So let's go.
I'm going to import my pipeline into the Zoink demo project. If we go to releases, you'll see that if you've got no release pipelines present, it doesn't allow you to import a project. So what we're going to have to do is we're just going to have to create a test pipeline, just an empty one, to allow us to import. So when we go back to releases, it's now possible to import. Before we do that, however, we will import the Python scripts as secure files. You would normally do this from Git, but it's a lot easier to do it this way for a demo. So having done that, we go back to releases and we import the pipeline, which you can download from Zoink. So initially we have some setup work to do. We need to define the approvers. For each stage. And then for each stage we have to go through the tasks, and we have to set the agent pools. Now I'm setting the hosted Windows 2019 with VS 2019 because that seems to work for what I need. So I need to set that for each of the agent phases for each of the stages. So in my case that's 3 places for each stage. Right. We need to also set variables. This is my personal access token. And now finally it allows us to save. Having done that, we still have to define the Python scripts. So you'll see that it actually has the name of the script that you're supposed to set here. So just make sure we set the right ones. There's 3 places that you have to set that. 1, and 3. And again, we need to do that for each stage. Okay. Okay, so that's saved. Let's start by doing a simple deployment. And let's deploy to production. Pre-deployment approval. Approved. If we monitor the logs, we can see it's doing a simple health check, just checking that the environment variables align with the stage names, everything else. There's a lot more detail about this in the Zoink post on this, or you can look at the Python scripts themselves. It's pretty obvious what's going on. So everything's passed. Then we move to code deployment approval. Now the point of this demo is to force people to think about what environment they're deploying to. Obviously the biggest problem is that somebody thinks they're deploying to, say, staging, and they're actually deploying to production. We want them to know and acknowledge that that's what they're doing. So rather than just typing in the word prod, which could be a simple copy and paste, we force them to put hyphens between each letter. So it will make calls to Azure, and it will read what you've entered in and see if that aligns with the stage that you are currently deploying to. So it's not complicated, and it seems to work reasonably well. So this one's passed. Everything's nice and green, and the release is fine. And you can see that it's picked up your comment. So let's mix it up a bit, and we'll go back and we'll do another release. Where we won't do everything quite right. This time we'll deploy to staging. we have the pre-deployment approval. Keep an eye on the logs. Again, health check. Do it every time because we want to make sure that production is configured correctly. So we check every environment, every stage, each time. So there's no surprises when we come to production. So now we do the code deployment approval. So as I say, we should be putting hyphens between the letters, but let's imagine we don't do that. So now it will make an API call, find out what you've entered in, and see if you've entered the right thing. The problem is here, this point, that we need the request module. That's not installed by default on the agents, so we have to download it and install it every single time we run on an agent. If you had your own hosted agents, you wouldn't have that problem. So when it does the check, this time it says it doesn't find the hyphenated stage name. As you can see, no hyphens. So rather than making you do the whole thing again, you get a second chance. And this is why I've called last chance code deployment approval. And it makes it quite clear that you need to be on your toes and what you entered last time, and it tells you what you should be entering. So let's do it right this time. And let's see what happens with that. So again, we have to install the request module, and again it's going to read and parse what you've put in your last comments. And this time it's all great. This time you put in the right thing and the deployment was approved. So the third use case is where perhaps you're having a pretty bad day and things don't get entered properly. So create another release. Obviously you could deploy the same one multiple times. And this time let's deploy the system test. So pre-deployment is done. Again, we do the health check, and again we have to download the request module and so on. And you get to your code deployment approval again. So you're not thinking, you're not reading, you're just saying approve, approve. So again, there's the same routine. Installs request, makes an API call, checks what you've put in. And again, you haven't put in the right thing. No hyphenated stage name is found. You haven't typed the right thing. So it goes this last chance code deployment approval. Remind you to type the right thing in as but you're still not awake, you're still not paying attention, so you put the wrong thing in again. So again, goes through the same routine, stores requests, parses what you put in, but this time it actually fails, and you can see that the whole deployment has failed this time for the first time. You go down the bottom, so the comments in the code deployment approval did not contain, and it says the comments for original approval was there, which is incorrect. The comments from just entered in the last chance was there, and it fails. So if we go back to the releases, we can see that we had 2 that passed and 1 that fails. I trust this has explained how my demo works. There's more details on the Zoink website, and please encourage you to download the pipeline, try it out for yourself, or alternatively just look at the Python scripts. Hopefully they're pretty self-explanatory with lots of comments embedded. Yeah, enjoy.